3, 2.
Hi, Lee First at Headwaters Science Center in Bemidji, Minnesota, and today is Wednesday, and it's Read to Orion Day. I'm reading to Orion, and today the book I'm going to read to is called Albino Animals. That's the name of the book. It comes from the nonfiction side of the library, but it comes with this question. Albino. Is Orion an albino animal? That would be the question. Is Orion an albino? Now, I'm going to just tell you in advance. A lot of people take the word albino and go, oh yeah, that's a white animal. And I just want you to know, albino does not mean white. What do I mean by all of that? Albino does not mean white. It means more than white. And this book, it's nonfiction. I'll have it back to the Beltrami, to the Bemidji library by sometime, maybe the end of the day or tomorrow. You can go check it out yourself, because this book is very long. Okay, I'm probably not enticing you to listen to the whole story, because if I read the whole story to you today, well, it would take, who knows, maybe an hour to read you the whole story. And I don't need to read you the whole story. I'm just going to read you parts of it to learn about albino animals. It's a non-fiction book, which means I'm about to tell you a whole bunch of facts. We're going after the question, is Orion an albino animal? What does albino mean? Here we go. Reading you the story. I should tell you a couple of things. This is a live show, which means at any moment we could just have all these chairs that are right behind Ryan, who's on the other side of the camera. They could all just fill up with all kinds of guests and visitors, and pretty soon, well, we'd have this really live show. But we also have this live show because it's going out to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch TV. Hey, say, Ryan, I heard the other day, Twitch TV, we have over 50 followers. Is that right?
We got our 50th follower last week.
50 followers on Twitch TV, which is a great thing, but we have lots of followers on our Facebook page and on our YouTube page too. What's going on? Headwaters Science Center is open 7 days a week. We're open 7 days a week. You have no idea how good that news is. We're open 7 days a week, 9:30 to 5 o'clock, Monday through Saturday, and on Sunday we're open from 1 to 5. I'm keeping my mask on today. We have a mask requirement, so if you're headed to the Headwaters Science Center, bring your mask with. We're going to say, come on in, but put on your mask, and that's how we will invite you into the Headwaters Science Center. Again, we're open 7 days a week. Today just happens to be Wednesday, August 4th, and I am reading to Orion. Is Orion albino? All right, I've always been fascinated by creatures of every color, shape, temperature, and size. But the sight of the animal from one very special group has left me astonished and full of questions. Nearly every species on Earth has them. Ruby-eyed animals with dazzling white skin, scales, feathers, or fur. They are albinos. That's animals with no pigment. There's a special word for you. Go look it up. Pigment. It starts with the word pig. It doesn't mean that they have pigs inside of them. It means that they have no pigment. In lay terms, we'd say they have no color. They have nothing. Thus, they appear to be white. The pigment is the coloring matter in an animal's cells or tissues. The pigment absorbs color from all the colors present in the light, called a spectrum. So, red birds have red pigment. When an animal has no pigment, it can't absorb any light, and it ends up appearing to be white. All the other colors reflect off of the animal and make it appear white. A lack of pigment even counts for the eyes, because all you see is pink. What is the pink you see? It's actually the blood that is in their blood vessels. Makes their eyes look pink. There's even some pictures where you can see the red blood cells that are in the ears. That all appears pink. These pages explain how that all happened. Because every once in a while you have an albino creature, animal, and their parents won't be albino. And how does all that happen is all on these 2 pages. And I'm not going to read them to you. I'm going to go right on to talk about the first group of albino animals. We were off of the fact, is Orion albino? Because he is white. See the white? Well, the first thing you would have said is, well, wait, what about those eyes? Orion doesn't have pink eyes, and albino would not be able to have these other colors that you're seeing. So we know that Orion is not albino. How about reptiles? They lay motionless beneath a pile of crispy autumn leaves. They rest on desert rocks, soaking up the morning sun. At night, they sing from a pond to an autumn moon. Some sleep underground, deep beneath the soil, or a blanket of snow. They thrive on every continent. They are reptiles and amphibians, Earth's cold-blooded vertebrate animals. As cold-blooded creatures, reptiles and amphibians depend on outside sources to warm up and to cool down. This helps them keep their bodies at a healthy temperature. That's very different from warm-blooded animals like us, humans. We regulate our temperatures internally, and we're always burning calories because we store fat from the food we eat. It now goes on to talk about more about reptiles and amphibians and the fact that some of them do appear to be completely white. So here's an albino bullfrog. Brian, are they able to see these on the screen? Are we going to be all right there? Yep. An albino bullfrog. This is an iguana, an albino iguana. How about an albino snake? So there's a king snake coming out of its egg, albino. This one put two tree frogs face to face, and interestingly enough, this red-eyed one is the albino one as they look at each other. How about an albino alligator and another albino alligator? What about alligators? These are extremely rare. For every 100,000 leathery eggs that are laid, only one will be an albino gator. So that's very, very rare. According to John Bruegel, general curator at the St. Augustine Alligator Farm and Zoological Park, only about 30 albino alligators exist in the world. That's very, very rare. Next page. We go right on to talking about other albino animals. I'm going to keep right on going. They talk some about how male and female alligators are determined in their nest. That's for a whole nother day. We're talking about albinos right now. We get around to albino snakes. Albino snakes are as rare in the wild as albino alligators. They are also cold-blooded sunbathers, soaking up the warmth whenever they can. Snake owners might think that their pet's smooth, flexible scales won't get sunburned. But Dr. Sprackland, a professional herpetologist, a reptile scientist and research associate at the National Museum of Scotland, says looks can be deceiving. Albino snakes can sunburn, which of course is a big problem because snakes do like to bask in the sun if for no other reason to get heat. And their skin can be damaged. In fact, they can be damaged even before they know that it's happened. So, albino snakes. We then switch to albino turtles. And I'm just going to pause right here on this page because I want to tell you, we have an albino turtle here at the Headwaters Science Center. And I'm going to tell you, come on in and see the albino turtle. What do I mean by an albino turtle? Well, he's not that much different than that one. Our albino turtle is a snapping turtle. This is an albino red-eared slider turtle, which, by the way, we do have a red-eared slider here at the Headwaters Science Center. But our albino turtle is a snapping turtle. Come in and see it. Alligators can move away quickly or attack if needed. Snakes can slither away or strike a predator. But life can be risky for the slow-moving creature, An albino turtle has a lot to worry about. Albino turtles born in the wild sometimes escape death. Then it goes on to talk about how the life expectancy of a white turtle is very, very risky. They're just not expected to live. All of that would not serve a turtle very well. And so in the wild, an albino turtle is not going to live for very long. We have an albino turtle. Come on in and see it. How about an albino toad? That's what this one is all about. He appears this way. This is a horned frog. And how about an albino crested newt, which is a kind of lizard.
Probably a salamander, not a lizard.
Oh, sorry, salamander. I'm sure glad you're here, Ryan, because every once in a while I speak incorrectly, and there you are. Now, I'm going to pause just for a moment and talk about this albino creature. Not because he's albino, because there's lots of them in this book. I want to talk about how unusual this animal looks right here. And again, jump in, Orion, because I don't know very much about this animal. Is it a fish? It is a frog. No, it's a Mexican axolotl.
Axolotl.
Axolotl. Let's try that again.
Axolotl.
Axolotl. This is a Mexican axolotl salmon. Centuries ago, this ancient Aztec discovered the strange amphibian and named it after Axolot, who was the mythical god of lightning. Axolotl is native to the freshwater lakes of central Mexico. Have you ever seen one of those, Ryan?
Yeah. They are trendy-ish as pets right now. Honestly, I would be sort of interested in potentially getting one here if I haven't talked to Lee about this yet, but I would like to get one actually. But yeah, they're really super weird, and they're pretty popular and trendy as pets right now. So people oftentimes have a lot of questions about them. But the weird thing about them is, for most salamanders, they do look kind of like you're seeing in the picture there for at least part of their lives, where they have that big flaring out on the side, and what those are around their head are actually gills. So salamanders are amphibians, which means they spend part of their life living in the water, and so they need to be able to breathe water, and so they have gills. What's really, really weird about axolotls is it is normal for them to never go through a metamorphosis and go into an adult form. There is an adult form of axolotls, you basically never see it. But every once in a great while, one of them will metamorphosize and turn into a basically normal-looking salamander. But the reason that they don't ever transition into their adult phase is it's something you do see sometimes in really rare conditions in the wild in really isolated populations, where basically if the resources that it has access to when it's developing are not great, if it is, not getting enough nutrition or whatever, or, something's wrong with the water it's living in, they'll develop, big word here, hypothyroidism. Basically, they won't produce enough of the hormones that let them transition into being adults. And like I said, you'll see it sometimes in really isolated populations with kind of all sorts of animals. But what's weird with these guys is they basically never do it, like no matter how good of conditions they're in. And so they stay in their larval form basically their entire lives. They said every once in a while, you'll get one that'll transition into the adult phase, but they become sexually mature without ever metamorphosizing, which is wild. It's the only thing I've ever known of that does it. And so they, I said, they've become kind of trendy as a pet lately because they're kind of fun, wild-looking salamanders, but a lot of weird biology with them. A lot of really strange, unique biology associated with axolotls.
All right, for all of you viewers, listeners, we took a side trip into axolotl. We're talking about albinos today, but we were actually talking about this animal right here, an axolotl, who is an albino. And much of what Ryan was just talking about, the development of gills, is explained on this page right here. Yeah, that would be an exciting development. Well, then it gets to warm-blooded animals. Now we go to talking about mammals. Even before you hear the waves crashing against the shores of sand and stone, you can smell it. The moist, salty smell. Unlike fish, mammals can live in water. Mammals that live in water are not born with gills. As warm-blooded creatures, mammals use lungs to breathe air. They must come to the surface to breathe. Sea lions, sea otters, and seals live both in and out of the water. Then they go on to talk about mammals, but this book is about albinos, so here comes some albino mammals. How about Snowball, an albino porpoise at the Miami Aquarium. This picture is actually from 1962. I wonder if that animal is still alive today. How about this sea lion pup? Completely albino. Squid. And then they go on to talk about an orca. Extraordinarily unusual animal. Never was not at a zoo. It was actually somebody who saw it and then chronicled it, meaning they kept record of it. And that was an albino orca. And then there is an albino adult sperm whale. And if that wasn't quite big enough for you, here it is again, the sperm whale. Pink-eyed favorites, rabbits, and here we have a hedgehog.
So the bunny we had before Orion was an albino. We had Leo, the lionhead rabbit, years ago. So people who came, 5, 6, 7 years ago probably remember us having an albino bunny.
All right. Here is the page where it very specifically said, if you are a white bunny, that doesn't make you an albino. Because an albino is actually the lack of pigment. So you could be a white bunny. Look at the eyes. That was the point they made. Look at the eyes, or look inside the ears. So we're going in here close. Look inside the ears, where you actually see the blood vessels that are inside the ears. They do it again on this page. They say, look at this pug. And another picture of the same pug, pink eyes. How about cats? And then here's a picture of a cat. And then mice. And I'm going to tell you, I raised many mice in my 3rd grade classroom when I was a teacher. And it's some Orion action there. And we frequently had albinos.
Yeah, a lot of the rats that we feed to the snakes are albino. I don't know why, to be honest.
Yeah, although
I mean, obviously they breed them for like scientific research. A lot of those ones are albino, so maybe that's just a lot of domestic mice and rats are albino. I don't know why they're better for scientific research though.
Yeah.
I've never looked into that. I'm curious now.
That's a good thing. That's what these shows are all about. But once you would start to breed so that that genetic would be more frequent, you would then have more albino.
Yep. And so if you breed 2 albinos together, all the babies are going to be albino.
So on purpose, they could be breeding for the sake of. How about a white squirrel? Now I'm going to tell you, I picked this book about 3 days ago, and just like I do with every one of our books, I would stop to talk to people. And there are lots of people who would say, oh yeah, I saw a white squirrel. And so it's not so infrequent that you wouldn't have people known about it. Here is a list of them. White rabbit. How about a ferret? We come along to, I'm not exactly sure what, oh, that's the hedgehog.
Looks like a hedgehog, yeah.
Yep. And this one is a sugar glider. And then this one here is a rat. How about bats? Well, I haven't seen a lot of bats in my entire life, and of course that probably would be sometime in the evening, maybe just before nightfall or maybe just before the sun comes up in the morning. But here's a white bat. That would be a little unnerving for me to see a white bat flying through the air.
Easier to spot.
Easier to spot. Albino rabbits, and again they point out, take time, look at the eyes, look at the ears before you call any white animal an albino. Ghost boy. This is an animal that's at the San Diego Zoo, and it is the koala. How about an all-white buffalo? And this one here is a white-tailed deer, which I think is a misnomer. This is a white-tailed deer on a white deer. There's the picture of the buffalo, the albino calf, along with its, in this case, mother. If you decide to go get this book, or you decide to do more research, you're going to find out that very often albino animals do not survive. And this talks about how there was a buffalo that actually made it all the way to adulthood and then lived for very, very many years. And that might be a purpose for a zoo, because a zoo could ensure that the animal's life very well could be extended. Bengal tigers?
So that tiger doesn't have pink eyes, though.
That's right. Tiger does not have white eyes. That might be a good thing for you to go and check out the book and find out what's happening here with this particular tiger. Doesn't over here either, if that's the one.
I think the word for that, when they have reduced pigmentation in the skin or fur but not in the eyes, I think the word you usually hear for that is leucistic.
Okay, say that again.
Leucistic. Leucistic or something like that.
All right.
So it's like a same root word as like a leukocyte or leukemia for white blood cells. So leuc means white in Latin, albus is white in Greek.
Okay. Well, how about a albino kangaroo? And a wallaby. And a gorilla. And they continue to be. Then they switch to fish. How important is water to life on Earth? People and most other life forms drink water to quench thirst. Water is a hunting ground for food. It is a form of recreation too, refreshing us when the weather is hot. Water in the form of seas, lakes, and pools and rivers provide a calm setting for thinking deep thoughts. Water is all of those things for us, but for fish, shellfish, and other marine creatures, water is home. Then they go on to talk about albino fish. This is a catfish. And a brook trout. Thought of my nephew when I turned to this one because he has fished brook trout here in Minnesota. An all albino brook trout. I wonder what he would say if that came out of the lake. And here comes another trout. This one's a rainbow trout. How about an albino stingray? And then it switches to lobster. I guess the point that this book is making over and over and over again, such as with this peacock, is that every single creature can be albino. If you're still with me this far into the book, I'm going to page a couple, because all of a sudden we're going to, and as rare as albino is in all of the preceding pages, it becomes even more of a rare thing to have albino insects. And so here's a locust that is albino, and a butterfly. Trying to remember Ryan's word now. I'm sure it's completely gone out of my head. For the one that is only partially albino.
Leucistic.
Leucistic. Here's a cockroach. Now, a white cockroach, not an albino, is what it says on this one. And that's what reminded me of the story that when they actually shed their skeleton, a cockroach will very often look like an albino, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the questions we get a lot with the cockroaches, because we have a lot of them, and so every once in a while, you know, most days probably at some point you can look in there and see one that is very white. And we don't have any albino cockroaches, but I say right after they shed their skin, they look white for a while.
Yeah, come on in and see that. Then it switches to albino plants. And finally, how about an albino person? And of course, this particular author is including an albino person over here. I'll just tell you, this is Brianka Knowlton. She hosts a website, and her website is all about human albinism. All right, so I'll get the book back to the library. But here's what I would encourage you to do. Yes, we are not the only resource on albino, but why don't you come on in? We have just enough albino animals. We'll show you around, share with you the information we know, and then you can find out more about albinos. I hope today has piqued your interest. That's why we do these shows at 3:30 every single day. Orion wants you to know, thank Harmony Foods. How come? Harmony Foods brings food for Orion and some of our other animals, but Orion really appreciates the carrots and apples and especially the leafy vegetables. Harmony Food brings us those produce after they are no longer saleable. So we receive a very generous donation from them week after week after week, providing food for not just Orion. We have some other animals that get to enjoy their generosity.